The Dreamcast, Sega's swan song in the console business, and easily the greatest console of all time. There was a lot the Dreamcast did before anyone else. Web browsing, online gaming, voice chat, tons of features that are the norm today, the Dreamcast did first. It's also home to some of the best ports of arcade games from the time, like Marvel vs. Capcom, Crazy Taxi, and most importantly, Sega Bass Fishing. So, I know, I sound like a broken record. Every single one of these reviews, I gotta comment on the graphics. It's just part of it. I can't think of a single fishing game that has ever gone above and beyond in this department. They just don't, you know? When's the last time you heard someone say, "Oh man, that fishing game is the most realistic looking title I've ever seen. It's amazing"? You don't. You just don't hear that. And that's because it's not about the graphics, it's about the gameplay. But that still doesn't change the fact that Sega Bass Fishing is average looking at best. The fish themselves look pretty good, but there's some clipping here and there, especially in the Steam version that I'm playing here, and they don't always move around like fish, especially when they're chasing your lure down. At no point do the visuals of the game ruin the experience, but they're just like any other fishing game. Average. The sound, on the other hand, is a different story. All the sound effects are, well, a lot of splashing and what's to be expected in any other fishing title. It's the announcer that makes me fall in love with the sound in this game.
Fish! It's gonna be a big one! Hit bonus!
While anyone can tell this guy is saying his lines phonetically, that just adds to the charm. Each time a fish is near you, hook or catch one, or do much of anything, he's there. What's great about this announcer is that he's endearing, not irritating like, well, almost every other announcer in video games ever.
Which Pokemon is coming out?
The music this time around does the exact opposite of the previous simulator titles. Sega Bass Fishing follows Trophy Bass 2 and cranks it up with different fight songs playing depending on the size of fish you're reeling in. It might seem like a small detail, but they just add enough tension to larger catches. Plus, they're all really catchy, cheesy butt rock songs that were popular around this time, which is perfect for this kind of game. Gameplay-wise, Sega Bass Fishing steps away from being a simulator like everything else we've checked out so far, and instead opts for a more arcade style of gameplay. I know I said that Trophy Bass 2 was fast, but it doesn't hold a candle to Sega Bass Fishing. In this order, you lure, cast, reel, fish, and repeat. It's that simple. There's a few different modes here. The arcade mode is exactly what it sounds like. You just play through the arcade mode of the original game, catching enough bass to reach the total before the time runs out. It's simple, frantic, and fun. There's also a practice mode which lets you fish at any location, provided you've unlocked it, without a time limit and with any lure that you've unlocked thus far. And of course, there's the original mode, which basically serves as a mix of a tournament and arcade mode. You're under the constraint of a time limit, but there's no set weight limit to each stage, at least not one that it tells you. The time is also extended out as well, making it longer than your average arcade session. Unlike all the other tournament modes I've played in, well, any fishing game ever, Sega Bass Fishing is one I'd actually go back to. It changes the rules just enough to be different, while at the same time not inhibiting the gameplay in any way. Lures this time around are unlocked randomly by catching fish, and while your line can break, there's no worry about running out. Each one plays differently, though I found the ones that sync tend to work the best. Now this is all well and good, but what makes this game so special, particularly when played on the Dreamcast? This. The Dreamcast Fishing Controller. With it, Sega Bass Fishing's experience from the arcade comes home. While a controller shouldn't make or break the experience, for Sega Bass Fishing, it helps immensely. You just know this controller was made for this game. Obviously, but using it really does make the game even more fun. Just being able to control how fast the lure's reeling in as opposed to using the triggers is great. I can't go as far as saying this controller is absolutely necessary, especially since I used the Steam version of this game for the review, but it's the piece that completes this title and makes it a blast to play. If you've got a Dreamcast and yet don't have Sega Bass Fishing in your collection with a fishing controller, get it. It's one of those weird titles that graced the Dreamcast and made it so great, like Typing of the Dead. If you don't have a Dreamcast, definitely still look into the re-release. There might be something a bit lost without using the fishing controller, but that doesn't mean it isn't the most fun you can have with a fishing game.